Hey everyone, so I'm going to try out an idea here because I really think it fits narcissistic relationship, which is this idea of psychological catfishing. Before I get to that, if you're new to this channel, I'm Dr. Ramani. This is a channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. We'd love to have you. And if you hang out in this channel long enough, you will learn everything you've ever wanted to know about toxic relationships and hopefully be able to help yourself get out of one or prevent one in the first place. So let's talk about psychological catfishing because this has a lot of bearing on narcissistic relationships. Now, it just dawned on me that something that narcissistic folks do is that they are, in a way, what we could call psychological catfishers. Now, I'm older, so when the show Catfish and the term catfishing came out, I didn't know what the hell it was. And for those of you who aren't up on these terms, catfishing means to entice someone into a relationship by creating sort of a false social media or, I guess, an online dating profile. And then when the person who's pulled into that profile actually meets the catfisher in real life or on a video chat, they see that that person is not at all who they present themselves to be. And by and large, the term catfishing then is focused on sort of misrepresenting your appearance, your gender, or things like a job. So a person will put up attractive photos that are not them or claim to be a gender they are not. So an example would be a person will pretend to be a young, attractive woman using false images. And then when they actually turn up, they turn out to be an old man. The catfisher is the one who puts out the false identity. The catfish is the person who falls for it. I hope that makes sense because I actually had to do some research to figure that out myself. But basically the portrayal of something false to draw someone in and then switching it up psychologically definitely felt like something narcissists do. So online spaces really provide a home field advantage for narcissistic folks because they spend a lot of time in them. They are rather superficial spaces, and narcissistic people are really good at putting out a sort of a false self. And in the case of catfishing, it's based on a false self. Catfishing, as I said, seems to focus on clear, identifiable issues: job, appearance, gender, race, age, that kind of thing. But couldn't we make the argument that something that narcissistic folks do, because the premise of catfishing is that you are trying to draw someone in and I guess get the sadistic glee of playing them, but that something that narcissistics do is draw people in on online spaces. And while the narcissistic person may not shift their identity, so in other words, the narcissist could use their real pictures, their real-ish age, their actual job, though they may sort of grandiosely fluff their job up, but then the real town that they live in. But instead, what the narcissist may do is put out a false psychology of being chill and nice and respectful and kind and easygoing. So let's say you do follow and start messaging with someone who is narcissistic. Their profile may seem attractive and compelling. And remember, narcissistic people are much better at social media and online dating than most people because they're so good at impression management. But the part they may draw you in is someone who seems to be a good listener, who is able to be empathic, may seem well-regulated, give thoughtful advice, be vulnerable, all of which feels like the opposite of narcissism. So you may have lots of virtual backing and forthing, writing, texting, DMing. It may even escalate to a video call. Now remember, this isn't a traditional catfish. So the gender of this person is right. Their pictures are real. Their background may line up with their pictures online. But in your little calls, they may still be showing empathy, niceness, regulation, warmth, and humility. So you bite. And this is a narcissistic person, so maybe there is some love bombing, but the fact is, based on the online interaction, the stuff we know that makes a relationship healthy, like respect, compassion, kindness, mutuality, reciprocity, they are all there. So you think, well, what's a little love bombing? This seems like a healthy person. And in the weeks before that, online, They also, in all their messages, seem to have the goods of what makes a relationship good and healthy. Now, maybe some red flags start to pop up, but you ignore them because they showed you what they were online, right? And it was good, and it wasn't a catfish. The pictures were real. They live where they say they live. They work where they say they work. They look like their pictures. I think that a psychological catfish is much more dangerous. If someone says that they are a 22-year-old woman and what shows up is a 65-year-old guy, that's an instant reveal, and you feel angry and foolish, and that is that. If someone says they are respectful and really interested in you and your life, and they give you good advice or support, and then within a month or so in real life, they're revealing themselves to be a gaslighting, manipulative, dysregulated person, you may wonder, what is this? In the case of psychological catfishing, the reveal is slow, so the dissonance and justification kick in. You think, I want the online person. Well, so did the person who thought they were texting with a 25-year-old hottie. They just got the reveal faster. Now, I remember watching 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days, and do not judge me, my days are very long. And one of the stories was a sweet woman who was widowed and had really nice grown kids. And she fell for the weird, sexy pictures of some muscle guy. And she did lots of messaging with him. And she fell for the romance. And she felt loved and attractive. And it seems like she found her sexual drive again. And then she started to try to set up a real life meetup. And after months of this, had never video called him, only audio called. So when the time came to set up a real visit, things obviously fell apart, and she found out that obviously he didn't exist and was calling from somewhere else than he claimed to live. And then her children did a reverse image search. I am not sure why they did not think of that initially. And they found out that basically the pictures were stock images of basic sexy guy. As I watched the show, I felt such an empathy for her. It was clear that this woman just wanted a love story and maybe even a fairy tale. But she went for someone kind of sleazy, but obviously he was attractive to her. And so she overlooked all of the red flags of the virtual relationship, the no video calls and all of that, because she wanted this relationship to work. I shudder to think about what would have happened to if her children had not stepped in and revealed the whole thing to be the fraud, and she actually went ahead and showed up to the place. She actually didn't fall for the financial shakedown that was obviously coming, but the whole thing was sort of sad, right? Let's face it, sane is a good look. Sane, empathic, caring, and when we get those things and a pretty face to look at, well, that feels like jackpot. So when narcissistic folks do this sort of psychological catfish, it shows that they do know what people want. They know that being caring and sweet and kind and listening is what people want. So they can fake it for a catfishing minute and then boom. Because more and more relationships these days are starting online, psychological catfishing may be the new normal. And once you get past the pictures and the superficial fluff, and when they do video chat you and you see they are who they say they are, it can be easy to think, yay, they are who they say they are. They know how to fake what looks good, but that healthy stuff, it's effortful for them. And once they have you, they aren't going to keep breaking a sweat and doing the whole fake respect and compassion thing. Love bombing is a sprint, a short period of time when they can put on a show long enough to get you. Personally, I think psychological catfishing is worse than just regular catfishing because it isn't clear the first time they walk in the door. It takes a minute for you to see that you were played. When a person who doesn't look like the pictures walks in, that's easy. When a person who looks like the pictures and for a minute acts like their messages and their video chats and then comes into your life and then after a few months switches it up, in essence, they drew you in with a false empathic self. To me, that feels like a much worse betrayal. And many folks who are in relationships with narcissistic people do feel that they were duped. If your relationship started in an online space, you may very well feel catfished. And as much as catfishing is a trope and we're tempted to make fun of folks in these relationships, we need to stop because this was real to them and they felt foolish and betrayed and hurt. And when we make fun of catfished people because we all think we're so smart that we wouldn't fall for it, to be careful. Some of you may think, well, what's the difference between a psychological catfish and a bait and switch? Maybe nothing, but there is something unique about the online space because it is not happening in real time. The narcissistic person can take a minute and give the responses they know will win someone over. Whether it's a catfish or a bait and switch, to me it's all the same. We get hundreds of emails from good people, smart people, loving people, empathic people who all got duped. Most of you who watch this channel likely got played in some way in a narcissistic relationship. It's why you're watching. This didn't happen because you're foolish. It happened because you're a decent human being. The betrayal of really thinking that you clearly saw someone and then having them do that bait and switch, it's an awful feeling. And remember, the responsibility of that is on the bait and switcher, on the catfisher, not on the person being catfished. Let's stop humiliating the people who fall for it and see the psychological hustlers for what they are. And most of the time, they are narcissists. So, love to hear your thoughts. Do you really think there is something called psychological catfishing? Drop it in the comments. Thanks again.